Hello, hello, dear friend. Welcome back to Inner Peace and Power. I'm telling you what, I could not be more excited. In fact, it might be an understatement to say that I am so excited for today's episode. I might even be talking a little bit faster than I normally do, and that is because of our guest today. I cannot wait to introduce you guys. Most of you know her already. Her name is Dr. Nneka Unachkuwu, also known as Dr. Una. I'll tell you a little bit about her. And then we're going to have this beautiful conversation that's going to unfold. So, Dr. Una is the founder of EntreMD, a company on a mission to help 100,000 physicians build profitable 7 and 7+ figure businesses so they have the freedom to live life and practice medicine on their terms. She does this through the EntreMD Business School, where I have been a student, by the way, for 4 years and thriving, which is the only school of its kind for physician entrepreneurs. Dr. Una also has the EntreMD podcast, which is a top 10 podcast, and she has a lot of best-selling books. She is featured regularly on Forbes, and her company hit number 315 on the Inc. 5000 list of the fastest growing privately held companies in America. Dr. Una is a board certified pediatrician, and she lives outside Atlanta with her amazing husband and her phenomenal 4 children. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Una.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this. This is going to be so fun. So
Oh,
fun.
we're going to have the best time. So I know your story, and many people listening may know your story as well, but would you share your story with us?
Yeah, so I will pick it up somewhere in my 20s. I will we'll skip to there. So my 20s, I'm a medical student in Nigeria. And my big plan was I was going to become an OBGYN. Well, that's part of my plan. But the one thing I was sure of was I was not going to be a pediatrician. That I knew for sure, quote unquote. And then, finished up with my training. The plan was always to come back to the United States. And so I came back, saw the lifestyle of the OBGYN. I was like, yeah, we're not going to do that. I was like, I still want to find the mommies. And so, where else could I find them? Pediatrics. That's kind of how I ended up in pediatrics, which is so cool because my patients would always say, it's like, you're our doctor too, not just our kids, because, they're the reason I went into it in the first place. But anyway, did that, did my training in New Jersey, was super amazing, and graduated, and like every good pediatrician, got a nice job in Georgia, so moved to Georgia. And my boss after a year was like, so here's a 5-year contract, like come
Yeah.
work with me. And at that point, I'd been married for 3 years. I had just finished the 3-year residency, so my context of eternity was 3 years. So 5 years, I was like, dude, but I was moving anyway. So I was like, I'm not going to stay. So he said, start your own practice. I'm like, how is this logical? I'm 12 months out of residency. I'm very pregnant in case you missed this bump that is staring you in the face. And he's like, yeah, it'll be fine. Like you're here, you're doing most of the work you need to do there anyway. If you have questions, ask me, I'll help you. So I will say ignorance is bliss because I went on and I started a practice. And when I got in there, I thought I will hang the shingle and they will come. And I hung the shingle and they did not come. And I was like, oh my goodness, I have to market, I have to sell, I have to do all these things. And to put this in context, Dr. Rashmi, you know this. I was a super shy, socially awkward introvert. So marketing, selling, putting yourself out there, this is not something I would do. But everything changed for me the day I read Brian Tracy's book, and he said all business skills are learnable. I thought the people who had better businesses were just better than me, and I was what I was. And the end. And that singular statement, I was like, wait, hello, hang on. Like, if there's anything I know how to do, I know how to learn. And so I started falling in love with learning about business, learning about marketing, learning about selling, learning about leading a team, learning about building a business as an asset separate from you that you can walk away from if you needed to and stuff like that. And it didn't take a long time, but business started thriving. Got docs that would work with me, so I had long weekends every weekend, and everything was good. Up until 2016, and I had this moment. I still remember where I was at my home office doing my thing, morning routine, meditation, all of that. And I just had this knowing this aha, like medicine as you know it is gone. Um, and if the only thing you know how to do is doctor, you're going to be out of luck. It's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be really bad. You have to retool yourself. I'm like, I had the regular narrative. All I know how to do is doctor. So I started asking questions like, if I could not lay my hands on patients, what else could I do to still be useful, meaningful, have an impact, create revenue? And what came up was, well, I could write, people write. I was like, I have a successful practice. I guess I could teach other people how to do. I didn't even know that coaching was a thing, right? You know what I mean? Like that's how green
Oh
I
yeah,
was. And I'm like, I could be a speaker. People get paid to speak, like introvert speaker, right? And all of that. But I then started the journey of retooling myself. But I like doing things with people. So I was like, this is going to be a bloodbath for everybody. So how about I do it with a bunch of physicians and we get ready for what is coming? It wasn't an accepted message then, because you remember this was 8 years
that's right.
ago. Right
That's right.
now, it makes total sense. But then it was like, what are you talking about? That will never happen. And so that's how EntreMD started. And it started with me doing some one-on-one coaching. Then I started doing events. Then I started doing group programs. Then I started a podcast. And then 2 years in, started the EntreMD Business School. And really at this stage in my life, that's career wise, that's my career is supporting doctors. My practice still exists, but I don't, I haven't been in it in 2.5 years. So I'm not even really the CEO of it. I'm the visionary of it, if you will, at this point. And then I spend all my time supporting docs because I cannot be convinced otherwise. This is our time. And we just need to add just one set of skills and everything changes for us. So yeah, and I've been married for 18 years at this point. I have 4 kids. I homeschool them. It was the older two, now it's everybody. So it's fun. So much fun.
It's incredible. And there's so much that I would love to kind of pick out from that amazing story, right? Shy, introverted introvert, employed physician, to truly a visionary, not just a thought leader, but actual leader of physicians who are building 7 and 8 figure businesses and being kind of this guiding light, being kind of this, having the capacity to have the whole depth of life and putting that almost on a little bit of display, if you will. Not in a way of like, oh, look, this is what I'm doing, but more of like, this is what's possible for you. And that to me kind of really sums up so much of what you just said, which is this idea of leading by example, of giving people the space to dream and dream really big.
Yeah. I started off not very confident. That confidence was not my thing. Imagine that I could have a big life. I could live life on my terms. It was not a thing. And so I do see it as a responsibility, not in a way like it's a heavy weight or anything like that, but I'm like, if people could just see, they can't unsee it. And so you've known me long enough to know I'm a very private person. Like I'd rather not be on social media. I'd rather not do any of those things. But I recognize the power of one example. If someone can just see it, it can unlock all the stuff that, like, you don't even have to really tell them what to do. They're just like, wait, if that is possible, then all I have to do is one, two, three. And like, you know what I mean? Like it unlocks a whole new world. And so, I see it as my responsibility to do that.
It's incredible, and I'm really grateful for it. And, you and I, we've seen each other in person multiple, multiple times. And what shines through over and over again is the true authenticity. Like, if you're going to look at me and say, I'm rooting for you, like, I feel it. I feel it. It isn't like, oh, there's no empty words. You're not saying things to say things. And I think there has to be a certain rooted groundedness for that kind of energy to actually feel safe to be expressed and to be connected to other people in that way. How do you think you harness that kind of energy?
I think a lot of it comes from my belief in humans, and I'll explain what I mean. When when you think about, acquiring real estate, right? Let's say you acquire real estate in a place where they have oil or they have minerals or they have diamonds or whatever. You don't just look at dirt as dirt. Like it's dirt, but it's so much more valuable than what meets the eye because of what is inside. And you never really know what's inside till you start mining. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so when I look at people, it's almost, it always like, I know for a fact that there are gems in here. And it's like, I wonder what that is. But what it is enough to change the person's life. It is enough to change their family. It is enough to change their community. And if they're willing to explore it, it's enough to change the world. I know that. And so for me, I feel like I am a catalyst of sorts. And my thing is just, can we unlock what is in there? Because there's something in there. There has to be. And so, you're right. And I'm glad you perceive it that way. Like when I say I'm rooting for you, all those things, it's authentic because it's not made up. It's not me hope. I'm like, there is something there. And it will blow the person's mind. It will blow my mind. And I can't wait to see. And it's one life. Like, why wouldn't we squeeze it all out? Like it's like oranges with tons of juice? So that's really where that comes from. And I'm like, the same creator who made the whole world we live in, you look at the oceans, you look at the mountains, we pay so much money to go look at all this stuff, made us. And I'm like, there is no way we're empty. Like, it's not possible. And so I really, really, really believe in people. And so a lot of what I do is helping them to see that, helping them to take enough action to get a little juice out. And they're like, oh my goodness, that came out of me. I'm like, yeah, and there's more. Like, let's go. So that's kind of the way it runs in my mind.
It's incredible, and I think what's really incredible about the way that you're even talking about it is your capacity to eternally be curious, right? Because at this point, somebody might look at you and say, "Oh my goodness, she has achieved, 10x of what any quote unquote doctor, entrepreneur, whatever is supposed to have achieved. Like she should be she's arrived."
not not not
What would
even
you say to that?
not even close. And I think it's because I don't know that there isn't any arrival, right? And I don't say that's a cliche, but the thing is, okay, so you've been working on yourself as an entrepreneur and on your business, right, for the last 4 years.
Yes.
And when you think about it, the more you accomplish, the more you can accomplish because you've built this, like the muscle that created your first 100,000 is so much bigger now. Like with less effort, it can do more, right? Like, so it's a muscle. So it's not as though when you do things, it gets exhausted. When you do things, you come up with a higher level of capacity to do even more things. Right. And so it for me, it's like, okay, I know I have a ton of potential. I just want to squeeze it all out. So when it's time to die, I'm like, here you go. The earth, you can have this empty body because everything I could have done, I've done. And it's not from a vanity, like I want to make this much. It's not from that. It's like you described, this real curiosity, like who could I become? What impacts could I have? And I think after you've done it for a while, like so after this was probably last year or so, I started thinking about it. I'm like, how many people are minority, so African American, female physician, technically immigrant, came from a different country, has built a practice they've walked away from, helped thousands of physicians, built a business to multiple seven figures and all of that. And when I thought about it, I'm like, well, it's not many people. And if it, like when you take percentages, and so if it's not, then there's more of a responsibility for me to keep going. Because even though I've shattered lids, I can become a lid. So if I coast, then what I'm telling you is you can come here and you're done.
Oof.
So it's up to me to say, the enabling environment my parents created for me got me here. My mother, who prayed tirelessly for me, did the work to get me here. My husband, who has mentored me with all his heart for the last 18 years, did his work to get me here. Like, there's so many people who play their part to get me here. So it's almost like where I am now is raw material. And now it's my turn to say, okay, you guys got me here. As a good steward of where you brought me to, I'm going to then take this to the next level. You see what I'm saying? So there
Oof.
there can't be a rival. There is no
No.
rival. There
No.
just isn't.
There just
Yeah.
isn't. There just isn't.
Yeah.
And your mission, your drive, it has to have a sense of abundance that it lives in, right? Like it's not pie. If you thrive, it doesn't mean I don't thrive. Like we know that. We know that innately as humans. And yes, society can kind of prime us and in a like almost like have us contracted, right? Like we can not even knowing it be swimming in these thoughts of just scarcity, not just scarcity of money. When I say scarcity, I mean scarcity of time, scarcity of relationships, like just a scarcity of like there's just not enough. And that is absolutely true in certain places in the world. So we're not discounting that at all. But for maybe somebody that might be listening, how can we move from that, from understanding that, okay, I'm swimming in this like stream of scarcity and it doesn't feel okay. It keeps me limited. It kind of runs our thought processes, but really where I belong is in abundance. That's where all of us belong. How do you get there? And how do you one of the first things that was so magnetically attracting for me, when I signed up to work with you 4 years ago, and I continue to do so right now. And anybody who's listening, please like take note, follow Dr. Una if you're not already, right? Is this idea of abundance, of the expansion, the never ending expansion of the learning and the evolution, and not being afraid of or villainizing money, right? Like, I mean, the original shekel, like we don't, like I wonder if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. So first of all, as far as the abundance in general, when I look back at, because I had a lot of scarcity stuff going, like I had quite a bit. Like you remember, I told the story when I started my private practice, and I could not pay anybody. I
Yeah.
was my own front desk.
Yeah.
Like I would pick up my phone, like, thank you for calling Ivy League Pediatrics. This is Ella. I could not bring myself to pay a front desk person. I could not bring myself to pay an MA. I did all my vaccines, worked up my patient. I could not bring myself to pay a biller. So at the end of the day, I will do my own bill. I need to understand, like, so it's not like 40 years ago I had a scarcity. Like this is, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so I get that. And I think when I think about it, I think the tipping point came for me when I started really focusing on helping other people. Because when you focus on you, there's only so much you need. You need one house. In the house, you need one room. In the room, you need one bed. You know what I mean? You can only eat so much and all of that. But when you start living to serve others, when you start living for impact, for significance, and all of that, like you, so for instance, how much wisdom do I need to run my business? Some. How much wisdom do I need if I'm leading a business school, if I'm podcasting every week, if I'm taking responsibility, I'm saying I want to help 100,000 physicians? I need a lot more wisdom. I need a lot more connections. So it just puts me in this place where for what I'm doing, this is what is required and this is what I have. And that's just the way it rolls. You know what I mean? And so I think the more inward focused you are, the more scarcity, the more you're looking for how do I serve other people, the more you tap into abundance because you just have to have the abundance, right? And the money piece, oh man, oh man. So man, where do I even start with this? Because it ticks me off so bad,
I
right?
knew it does.
It ticks me off so bad. So I think about it in a number of ways. So the first place where I started getting ticked off by it is, there's a narrative where, if you are a religious person, so if you are a Christian, you're supposed to be humble and broke,
Yep.
right? And I
Yep.
remember I didn't grow up in church. So there are a lot of narratives that I just didn't acquire because I wasn't I was in those circles. And I'm like, so you're telling me like that the Bible says that I made an image of God. I'm his kid and I'm broke, that he's the king of kings and he's the king of kings because I'm also a king and I'm broke. Like this does not make sense. Right?
Right.
Like I'm like,
Right.
this does not make sense. And
Yeah.
so this is a narrative, has nothing to do with what he actually said or anything the Bible says. So why are we doing this? Because I'm like, if your God is a broke God, I don't want to be there. Okay. All right. So, and I'm not, and to be clear, I'm not necessarily I'm not motivated by money. And the money's important. Like, my podcast talk about it all day, every day, but I'm not motivated by it. But at the same time, we shouldn't be ashamed. Like I shouldn't be ashamed that I have money. I shouldn't be ashamed that I can pay for vacation. I shouldn't be ashamed that I can pay off someone's house. I shouldn't be ashamed of any of that stuff. It's not bad stuff. So that was the first time I started really questioning it. I'm like, yeah, no, 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 no. Even according to the book, it looks like I should have this thing figured out. And then, I somebody made a statement, one of my mentors, and he said that money is not good or bad, because that's the other thing, money is evil. I was like, it's not good or bad. Look at it. It's mercury paper with dead men's faces on it. It's paper. It is paper that you use to exchange for, and it's like it just takes the shape of whoever has it. And I said, okay, if I plan to have a huge impact in the world, I plan to, be very helpful to people. I plan to live a great life. I'm not trying to create evil, then I should have the money. Because in my hands, it will look like me as opposed to what it will look like in the evil. But, so I started changing like if I'm good, and good is, it's like,
Sure.
yeah, but if this is my intention, then I should have it. So I can use it to do, whatever good I have. And then when you come to the physician space, as physicians, we're completely removed from the money conversation, right? And
Always.
so this is what happens. If it's an employed physician, you leave home, drive to work, park your car, grab your coffee, go sit in your office. Then they come tell you the patient is ready. You go see the patient, you do your thing, and then you go home. And then magically, money shows up in your bank account,
Magically.
right? Magically. And so to us, there's a disconnect between I do good and I make money. Right. Like, so I don't talk about money. I don't have anything to do with money. I just take care of people. I'm like, the only evidence that that's true is if you give up your paycheck.
Yep. Yep.
That's the only time that's true. And so there's this whole thing of if I help people, I shouldn't ask for money. If I ask for money, then I'm not really helping them. And I'm like, but that's not true. Right. Like, we get helped on Amazon by getting our stuff like in 24 hours instead of 2 weeks, and we pay happily.
Yep.
I bet there's
Absolutely.
something in your life right now that you're really going like, I wish I could find somebody who could do this. So I can pay them to make this problem go away. So when I am helping, when I am serving, I can also earn. I can serve and earn. And my earning does not cancel out my serving. So we have a lot of mind drama, mind drama in that realm. And so it's like, I just want to help people. I'm not in it for the money. I'm like, it's a business. You better be in it for the money. Because if you don't figure out the money, you need to close the doors and you will serve nobody.
That's right. That's right.
So let's not get so, all up there, like I'm helping and all of that stuff. And no. And so for me, I think I questioned a lot of those things. And again, I'm not the kind of person who would want to talk about money.
Right. Right.
I'm not the kind of person who want to talk about how much my business made. The reason I do it is because there is no escape from burnout, loss of autonomy, private practices shutting down, and all the problems that plague healthcare without us figuring out the money thing. We have to figure it out.
We
Yeah.
have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Woo. And I mean, this is one of my most favorite things to hear you talk about because the way that craft the way that your story unfolded with money is so powerful. And just like remembering that you're not crazy if you don't want to talk about money, or if us talking about money feels repulsive to you, like that could be your very first initial reaction. But can we come back to a space of curiosity? Can we come back to knowing that sometimes you remind us if there's no money, there's no mission. I mean, if there's just it doesn't exist. Like unless you're, a nonprofit or you have a trust fund that you're going to use these things from, most people don't have either of those things. And we have bills to
And
pay. We have
for the nonprofit, they still have to raise
They
money.
still have to raise
They
money.
they still have to have the money conversation one way or
Yeah.
another.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it is so important to get that kind of clarity as to, yes, abundance is actually what we are all in. And contractually, we might find ourselves in scarcity, but it's okay. We can always come back to this sense of abundance and remembering who we are, remembering where we're going. And who better to kind of follow than you, who I mean, you're literally like chopping the way through these really thick woods. Much of it, no physician or any even patients that are listening, this is impactful for everyone, right? Whether we have a doctor or whether we are a doctor, because doctors are leaving in unprecedented numbers. And and the ones who are there are in deep burnout, and so the care is compromised because the system is so broken, the system is not taking care of our doctors, and so that is trickling down into not taking care of our patients, and the rise of kind of all of these private equities. There's an urgency to the work that you do you think?
Oh, yes. And I mean, I felt that sense of urgency in 2016. So now it's like at an all-time high. I'm screaming
Yeah.
from the rooftops. And I think you would understand this so well because you are in the EntreMD business school. Sometimes I have to spend quite a bit of time in the healthcare space to get this perspective of the physicians because what is happening in our community is like a completely different experience, right? So, I mean, the number of private practices going out of business, I mean, it's almost every day. There's somebody posting like, I finally decided I can't do this anymore. But you're in a community where you see them thriving, like thriving in ways that don't actually make sense, like that much thriving. And that's not to say there are no challenges. There are. Like nobody's looking for a world where there are no challenges. That just doesn't exist, right? But it's a possibility, right? What is possible. And, people may say, well, if I'm employed, then it is what it is, but it's not. People, right, Dr.
Oh, yeah.
Rashmi,
Yeah.
in the school who are having more vacation time than they've ever had, earning more than they've ever earned, just because they've understood how to function as an entrepreneur within a job, right? What we call an entrepreneur. And so for physicians, we don't okay, so I wrote a book that was a precursor to the EntreMD method. Um, it was called Adapt or Die
Wow.
in
Okay.
2018. It was
Okay.
called Adapt or Die. And the reason, so EntreMD method is kind of like a spin-off of it, but it's a more, it's a more, it's a nicer name and stuff like that. And one of the reasons I didn't use that name because it was so dramatic and, permanent and all of that stuff. But I was like, but that's the truth. Like in the healthcare space that we exist in now, it's literally adapt or die. Like we have to retool ourselves. We have to learn skills, new skills. We have to get okay talking about money. Money is not bad. Money is just mercury paper, a dead man's face is on it. It takes the shape of whoever has it. And until you create financial freedom for yourself, how are you going to have autonomy? There and like in the business school, when someone says, "Oh, my employer decided not to renew my contract," we celebrate that. We're like, "Yeah, now you could go do what you really want to do anyway."
Right.
Because they
Right.
have autonomy, because they figured out the money thing. They understand how to create money. They understand how to build a network that will support you so you can go on to create the business of your dreams. They understand that. So it's not at anybody's mercy. We don't have a choice. We need to adapt. And for if you might be listening and you're like, well, I'm not a physician, then you're a physician ally. You
Yep.
are a physician ally because when there are no healers, which is what is happening, like healers are leaving in unprecedented numbers, and you cannot make a healer in 2 years.
Right.
It's not, you can't just replace them. They're leaving
No.
in unprecedented numbers.
Right.
If there's anything you can do to support the physicians in your world, I am telling you, your physicians need you. Do it. It may be sharing this podcast with them. It may be sharing the EntreMD podcast with them. It might be getting a book you can give with them. It might just be when you go for your appointment, you're like, you know what? I know it's tough in the streets, but I just want to let you know that I really appreciate you for doing it because many have left. Be nice to the ones that are still there, you know? But yeah, there's so much evolution. And sometimes I stop and I think about it. I'm like, there are too many people leaving. We have to make a way for them to stay and a way for them to come back. Otherwise, as a country, we're going to be a very sick country very soon.
For sure. For sure. I think that is Oh, said so beautifully and so well. I'd like to take a little bit of a more granular look at how you lead and how you move through and flow through so much of this evolution that you have. And one thing that I've noticed that you have had to practice, it's a skill, you teach us that as well, is the idea of setting boundaries, right? Like we have to have time boundaries, space boundaries, we have to have energetic boundaries. I wonder how you move through setting and then maintaining your boundaries because really truly like you're homeschooling 4 kids, you're married, you have a very strong marriage, you're running this incredible school, you have multiple podcasts, you're writing books every quarter. What? You have to have a gold medal in boundaries. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I will say, so nobody feels like, oh man, I don't have it together. I've been an entrepreneur for almost a decade and a half now. So I've had a lot of practice, right? A lot of practice. So the starting point, because at my core, I'm phlegmatic, so I don't want conflict of any kind. And I started off as a people pleaser. So, like that was my reality. But I think I got an understanding earlier on that I could become many things, but I am like the center of gravity. Like once anything happens to me, all of these things are gone. Like so, you talk about the companies, the marriage, the kids, all like I am the center of gravity. Like the thing that must be protected at all costs is me because everything comes out of me. Right. Because as a people please, there's no way I'll say, oh, observe your boundaries and I'll just keep out that. There's no way that would have happened.
No.
It's the understanding that the opportunity cost of not observing the boundary is there companies that I could start that I would never start. There are books I could write that I would never write, that I will show up at my 90th birthday party going like, oh my goodness, I could have done all these things, but I didn't. What am I going to say in my next life? Like, this is it. This is
Yeah.
not the rehearsal. So a very deep understanding of above the business, above the kids, above the dreams, above all of that is me. And if I am not okay, if I am not stewarded properly, nothing happens. So that's the starting point for me because there's no other for me there's no other way that would have happened. Okay, so once I came to that, I then realized that I would have to say no a lot. I would have to say a lot of no's, or I cannot say yes to the big things, right? I would have to say a lot of no's. I would have to choose who I spend my time with and all of that. So let's look at some boundaries here. One of the boundaries is really with things. It's like there are things I will just no longer do.
Oof.
I would just not do them. Now, this was not an easy one for me. My husband was much better at this. So, traditional African woman, like I have to do my own cooking and do all of this. And he's just like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm cooking. He's like, is that the best use of your time? I'm like, what kind of question is that? This is what we do, right? He's like, yeah, but you're trying to explore all your potential, do all these things. You're going to have to choose. Do you want that or not? Because
Oof.
you can't cook and do that. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Right.
Like you can't. I didn't marry you to cook. Like if I wanted to cook, I'd hire a cook. Like. So he started teaching me to get those things off my plate. So again, this is 14 years, but I don't cook. I don't clean. I don't
Yep.
go grocery shopping. I'm not telling anybody to do this. Like if it gives you peace and joy, do it, but it does not give me peace and joy. I don't do grocery shopping. I don't even shop for my own clothes. You know this, right? When it's
I
time for an
do.
event, my team is like, okay, these are the outfits you're wearing. I'm like, thank you very much. And like because the time it would take to do all those things, I could have used it to write a book. So the
Yes.
question is, do I want to do the laundry or do I want to write a book? Right? Like so with getting things off my plate, delegation, I had to become really, 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 really good at it. And even with delegation, because sometimes people have big teams, but they're still doing all the work.
Yeah.
So when my people come and say, you know, I don't know how I- I'm having this problem. I'm like, great. I don't even attempt to take that problem off their plate. I'm like, awesome. I see it as a coaching session. I'm like, so what do you want to do about it? Like, I don't know. I'm like, oh, okay. So I want you to go think about what you're going to do. You can research and all of that. Give me your best three, and I'll tell you which one we'll do and why. So next time you'll know what to do. So I train the people that work with me to be very high capacity.
Yeah.
So I'm not touching their monkeys. I'm not dealing with their stuff and all of that. Yeah. Okay. The other thing is with, boundaries as far as people and my time. I'm very selective on who I'll spend my time with. For instance, a lot of people will come to me for mentorship. They're like, I want to ask you questions. I want to do all of this and all of that stuff. If they're not people who do things, I don't meet with them
Hmm.
because you don't do things. So when I tell you stuff, you're not going to do it either. And I only have 24 hours and I'm trying to have maximum impact. So this is not a good use of my time. But I have a podcast, I'll give that to you. I have a book, I'll give you to, but I'm not giving you my time. I don't have it to give. But if you're somebody I know that if I talk with you and all of that, I will see the ROI in your life. I'm like, all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. Let's do this. But if you're going to waste my time, we're not. I have strong boundaries around that. We are not going to do that. I have resources to give you. We will not be sitting together. That will not happen at all.
Incredible.
And then when there are people that after you have a conversation with them, you have to go coach yourself, meditate, pray.
Yes, yes,
Right?
yes, yes,
Okay. Those people do not have my time.
yes,
They don't. I
yeah,
don't meet with them because I'm like, I have to be in a certain energetic state to do what I do. I don't have the bandwidth to sacrifice that just to appease you. I'm like, I don't have the energy for it. So you're just gonna complain, whine, everything's bad, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, no, we're not gonna do that. So I'm very protective of my time. I'm very protective of how I spend my energy. And I'm very protective of my own energy. Like, yeah, like you can't, I can't do it because think about it. I do so much to keep myself in a state where I'm full of joy. I have peace. I'm excited about life, willing to go after the vision. Like this is not something that ever happens by default. If you see somebody like that, they're doing work. So why would I do all that and come spend time with you, knowing that in 15 minutes you're going to deplete all of that?
yeah.
I'm not. I'm not. I'm not going to do it. I just don't do it. And I think the last thing is I when it comes to helping people, I lost my messiah complex. I had that. Like, if I just help them hard enough,
Whoa,
they will
right.
become. It's such like I try to make it a one-way street. It is a two-way street. You cannot help somebody who does not want to be helped. Like there, I tried so hard. Oh, I will tell you, I tried so hard. My husband and I pastor a church, so of course I'm like, oh, the people that and all. But if they want it, yeah. If they don't want it, there is nothing you can do. There's absolutely like, is the child that doesn't want a nurse? What are you going to do?
Yeah,
There's nothing you can do. And so I learned to give that up because there's a lot of guilt. There's a lot of negative energy around that, right? When you feel like I couldn't help this person, but they did not want to be helped,
right.
right? So if you're a helper, that's something very important to manage. Otherwise it becomes too much. You end up like you're feeling like a failure when there's nothing you could do. You need to be able to let that go. You need to show up at 100% where you can tell yourself, because you can lie to anybody, but you can tell yourself, I did everything possible to help that person thrive. If they didn't want it, nothing you can do about
Oof.
it. Yeah.
What an incredible way to approach that and to remember. And what I hear you kind of articulating so clearly is your capacity to come back to your why as the center of gravity for the people that you serve and are connected to. And the protection of your energy means that you're going to have to say no a lot. And when you say no, it might also mean that you are disappointing someone who you care about. And who you care about extends to all humans. So it isn't like, oh, I just don't care about these people. No, you care about them and you have to protect your energy. And you have to then, what you said was so powerful of like, When I turn inward and I ask myself that question, y like, the idea of just being able to say, "I didn't disappoint myself," is everything sometimes. I mean, it's just everything, right? Like, and sometimes I even ask this question out loud, like, who do I need to disappoint so I don't disappoint myself? We don't always have to disappoint someone, but sometimes we have to remember that that has to be the case. And that is what a boundary is, what you're talking about, which is saying to someone, this is the place where I can respect you and still respect myself. This is my boundary. Here's my podcast. Please go listen to it. And when you're ready, let's have a conversation. Those are sometimes we confuse them for walls. And you really clearly articulating what a boundary is and how that serves you to grow and evolve and actually helps that other person as well. Because you're not helping anyone if you continuously deplete yourself and then you show up like not Dr. Una for Entre MD or the podcast, like, we can all sense it. And so you're not doing
That
that.
will not be good.
No.
And
No.
Dr. Rashmi, actually, when you think about it, because you said it's good for the people too, let's bring it into private practice. So I use it in a model like where I am now, but let's bring it into private practice. One of the things I tell doc all the time, they'll say, call me anytime. I'm like, why are you saying that?
Right,
Do you
right.
want them to call you every time? You have a panel of 1,000 patients. If they call you every time, when do you spend time with your family? When do you rest? When do you recharge? When do you attend conferences? Like, how are you going to be able to show up for them? So, if they call you every time and you burn out, now everybody has lost a doctor, including the person you allowed to do that.
Yes,
Right. So, when you think about it, even in your own practice, like they're sending a gazillion portal messages. Somebody else can take care of them. If
yes.
it needs you, then it's an appointment, right? They want to call you all kinds, like all the time when it's not an emergency. Doc, I've had a rash for 3 weeks. Why are you calling me at 7 p.m.? I already worked from 8 to 5. Why are you calling me at 7 p.m. to tell me about a rash that's been there for 3 weeks? And for us, we think it's great that means I'm always available for them. We're not gods. You know what I
No,
mean? Like we don't have an infinite amount of time, energy, and all. We have to manage the resource so we can continue to serve them, not just now, but 10 years from now. There are times when a basketball player is having a really good game, but it's a 40-point lead. What does an intelligent coach does? He removes his star players
right.
because I can keep you here. You can get injured in a game we're going to win anyway. They pull them out. Is it because they don't have enough energy to play through the game? No, but you got to preserve the vessel so the vessel can continue to work. And so boundaries are, it's not like you said, it's not like I'm putting up a wall. Don't talk to me. I'm all that. It's not that. It is you being a good steward of the number one resource you have, which is you. So you can continue to be you and you can continue to serve. I want to be able to serve when I'm 60, when I'm 70. If I want to do that, it means I have to behave a certain way now, right? Yeah.
Oof, this whole thing has been mic drop moments, by the way. Like, I think I'm not gonna blame whoever's listening if they listen to this one twice or maybe 3 times, because I'm gonna have to go back and listen at least twice because the amount of wisdom is really blowing my mind. Now, I wanna respect your time, Dr. Una. I wanna start to kind of wrap this up. One of my favorite kind of curiosities eternally is this idea of practicing lightness of being. We talked about a lot of serious things, and there are a lot of serious things in our world, so we're not denying that. And there is a sense of like enlightenment or lightness of being. How do you practice that in your life?
And so is that as far as being light or getting enlightened?
We're going to say that you are well on your way to enlightenment. And one of the one of the effects of that can be remembering that we're on this planet for this nanosecond, embodying this energy for this very short period of time. And how can we bring a little bit of lightness into these very heavy things that we are shifting and doing?
Yeah. So for me, I think, I'm an introvert and a deep thinker and really serious. Um, One of the things that I do to kind of put myself in a space where I'm having fun every day. Like I don't have the weight. It will sound so weird, but it's taking walks in nature. You
Yes.
know what I mean? Like because there's something about I don't know what it is. Someday I'll figure it out. But there's just something about walking outside, looking at this sky, not being able to see the end of it, having the trees doing their thing. It's hard to be distracted because it's just me and nature. And there's just something about it getting rid of burdens and heaviness and confusion. A lot of times when I feel heavy because I have all these things I'm doing and deadlines and things like that, I open my door and go take a walk. And I
Yes.
come back whistling, not whistling, I can't whistle. Like I come back singing. I can't whistle for some reason, but I come back singing and when I'm not even thinking about any of those things, I get what I call downloads, where it's like answers to things I've been looking for and all. And I'm like, huh, I wonder why I didn't think about that. Okay. Right. And so taking walks is something that is really powerful for me. Another thing that's powerful for me is talking to people who have they don't get what I do and they don't care about it.
Whoa.
You know, they don't care.
Yes.
They don't get. So we are not going to be talking about what I do. They don't care
Wow.
about business. They don't care about podcasts. Don't care about money. So we're just talking about random things. I would never, of my own free will, because I'm a very serious, very focused person, right? Like if I got to spend a week with you, we would probably do masterclass after masterclass. Like I would have to discipline myself to make it fun. You know what I mean? So
Yes. Yes.
so that's a big pattern interrupt with me. I hang out with people who they're just like, huh, what's an ink 5,000? Like, you know what I mean? Like they don't know, they don't care. And we just talk about babies and weather and holidays and yeah, things like that, knitting, crocheting.
How
So so I
about
so I
that?
do that.
Yeah, yeah, and the fact that you're doing that with intention and on a pretty consistent basis, because I know that you are, a very regular walker. You're, kind of constantly dipping into nature and reemerging and all of that. It's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. I want to just end by saying that EntreMD Live is coming up. It's going to be at the end of June. Would you tell us a little bit about that and why? I'm already signed up. I'm going to be there. Why, if somebody isn't signed up, why they need to sign up and send this to the next 100 people.
Oh my goodness, they do need to sign up. So this is the deal, right? Jim Rohn was the one who said, "Don't wish things were easier, wish you were better." And that's where we are now. Things are quote unquote rough, but it doesn't mean quit. It doesn't mean stop. It doesn't mean we can't thrive. It means it's time to get better. And that's what EntreMD Live is going to do for the doctors who attend, is going to help you get better so you can be the entrepreneurial athlete you need to be to thrive in the times that we're in. And so this will be our fifth one.
Incredible.
And we are going to be looking at very strategic things. What is working for physician entrepreneurs in 2024? How to take your business from best kept secret to household name. 5 moves that'll help you get all the clients or patients that you want. Like, how do I make that happen? And Dr. Rashmi, you've seen us do this, so you know what's about to go down. And this fourth session is really one of my favorite, is how to build your dream life while you're building your dream business. Because some people think is, oh, I just hustle, put my life on hold. We don't do that. We're not about that. We've done that. We did that in medical school. We're not
Right.
doing it again. And so these are very strategic things. And then you get to see so many examples of what is possible, whether you're an employed physician, private practice, coach, consultant, speaker, event host, whatever that is. You get to network with some of the most brilliant minds in entrepreneurship. It's going to be so fun. But this is the deal. This will be our fifth year doing this. And there's so many people who can point to that moment in EntreMD Live, that was their defining moment. That was the moment that changed everything. So I always show up for events like you pay 10 grand for it, even though the virtual tickets are free. But that's because I am there to help you experience a radical transformation. That's what it's all about. So it's entremd.com/live. You definitely want to be there. If you can make it to Atlanta, you want to be in the room with the docs in the room. It's really gonna change everything. And this is something, when I wrote the Entrepreneur Method book, I said, the Calvary is not coming. It is here. It is us. And so you coming is powerful. Oh my goodness. But you inviting the doctors in your world to come by the hundreds, now that's something, because so many people are going to point to their defining moments and they'll say, yep, it all started when this person sent me a link. That's where it all started from. That could be
Yeah,
you.
how about that? How about that? I cannot wait. I mean, this is just so much fire that's there and so much energy and not just inspiration, but empowerment as well. And so I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for all the work that you do, for the examples that you set for us, and for the wisdom that you've shared with us. Thank you so much for spending this much time with us today. Is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't?
There isn't, but there is something I want to tell you.
Okay.
And that is this. I want to tell you thank you. Thank you for starting this podcast and showing up and delivering value. And for all the clients you serve and all of that. And I don't I don't flatter people. I say that because you've done it for so long. You're making such a difference in the lives of people. You keep up leveling the way you do it. And you have never for a second sacrificed the idea of a dream life in the process of doing it. I've watched you thrive as an entrepreneur, thrive as a wife, thrive as a mom, and it's just very pretty to see. And you may not know this, but a lot more people observe that than you'll ever know. There are so many people who've turned around their families, who've gone all in on their business just watching you. You may find out 10 years from now, 20 years from now, but that's the power of an example. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for supporting all things EntreMD. You've done that for years. Like next year will be half a decade. You've done it for so long. And I am grateful for it. Every time I see it at a live event, I know I give you a million hugs, but I am so grateful for you. And I'm so glad that I'm so grateful for your support, right? It means a lot and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, and I am incredibly and eternally grateful for you, like I said, and for those incredible words. Thank you so much, Dr. Uda. Listen, please share this episode, guys. I am going to put all of the links for you to find Dr. Una. You're going to not want to miss any of those links. And until next time, continue on this curious journey that you're on.